Hi, everybody. It's T Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Oracle of the Self. This is, I believe, session number 30.
Yeah.
I'm no longer going to call it a coaching program. It really is, has morphed into more of a training. And now it's become even less of a structured training and more of a spontaneous training based on whatever is either happening in the world or whatever questions you guys happen to have. So when we finished the last call, I was just laying down a little bit of foundational work on the subject of empaths and the degree to which each of us as humans are empathic, and particularly those of us that are in some sort of a helping profession. Are we more of an empath? Are we simply more trained to use our empathic skills? Where are we in the world of empath, and where are our clients? Because they're all empaths too. And we're chatting a little bit about how even the people that we encounter in our day-to-day lives, our friends, our family members, etc., they too have a home somewhere along that empath kind of scale, and they could very well be in a deeply empathic state that can be causing them a lot of trouble. But because they don't have the awareness, they don't have the skill set, they don't have the coping mechanism, they end up getting trapped. And so we started talking about metamorphs and how being able to morph is a good thing, but getting stuck there where you become whatever the situation is, you feel it, it feels you. This is where things can become really a problem for everyone. So I just wanted to give you guys, that's kind of where we left off. So I'm kind of wondering, after our last call, did you guys have any thoughts, insights? Did you encounter any situations where what we'd been talking about kind of played out? Anyone thoughts to share?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, pardon me. So these are the things that occurred to me afterwards. And by the way, the Thursday, last week Thursday, we also started talking about empaths on the Circle of Brilliance calls. Those recordings are up. You're certainly welcome to, go and watch them on YouTube just to catch up. But we're going to be continuing that discussion tomorrow. In fact, I will share with you that what I'm doing on the circle side of things is I'm taking this very long article series that I had written many years ago, and I've been breaking into pieces and sharing it with the circle. So I've just chatted over to everybody what the first empath article was. What you might find interesting in this is that there's an assessment that you can take to find out how much of an empath you are, and how much do you suffer from the negative consequences of being not so much being an empath, but being an ill-informed or poorly trained or untrained empath. And so it's kind of like two assessments that you need to complete them both. And then based on how you score on each one of them, it's going to tell you where in the whole world of empaths you happen to live. So I think it's an interesting thing for you guys to do. And there's obviously a lot of narrative that goes along with it that hopefully you'll find interesting as well. Questions, comments?
Too.
What's that now, Anja?
It can be shocking too, taking the test.
Really interesting that you share that. Let me slide it into place. So I'm kind of curious if you filled it out. Are you willing to share how you rated and what was surprising about it with us?
Well, I'll share it. I came under, I did not expect this.
Okay.
I came under profound strengths and significant challenge.
Okay, profound strengths and significant challenges. So without turning this into, it's a little bit early to overlay this on the change grid, but when you're talking about profound strengths, let me open up a change grid just a second. When you're talking about profound strengths, what you're basically indicating is that your perceived level of ability is significantly high. So profound strengths, the only level higher would be mastery. So profound strengths. And the thing is that profound the challenges being profound would also parallel with this challenge kind of spectrum on the axis on the change grid as well. So you're talking about significantly high challenge ratings and significantly high ability ratings or skill ratings. Well, where does that put you? It puts you out here on the change grid. And that means that the primary energy that's being summoned within you is this driver energy. Now, it's not just driver. We can see that that's also a lot of it's going to be that amiable driver. So the amiable driver is driven to care about something. So primary energy, obviously, the driver. But what are you driven to do? In your particular responses, you're driven to notice, to explore, perhaps, to talk about, to reach out, to make yourself of service, etc., as far as this subject matter is concerned, this empathy kind of thing. Now, I would go further and say that you could be as far out grid as perhaps the driven, amiable driver. So add another dose of driver, wanting to make something happen, wanting something to change. You might even be out here at coordinates 9 and 9, which we would consider to be the balanced driver, but that's even more of the driver energy than slightly in grid would be. And so what this would tell me is that when you find yourself in a situation that brings your empathic skills into play, or you find yourself in a situation where there's a lot of people feeling a whole lot of things, you feel what they're feeling very quickly. You resonate with it. It might even be something that you are feeling vicariously. You know, you're experiencing it inside of you, even though it's happening inside of them. And you feel compelled to fix it. And so part of the struggle here, and you can tell me if this is right or not, is that you didn't kind of necessarily want to take on the responsibility of fixing it. And the person you're talking to may not even want to be fixed. But there you are, energetically going like, this is something that must be addressed, something that does that resonate at all with you, Anja?
Oh my God. It's a lesson. I hate to say it's a lesson I've learned because I've obviously not learned it, but it's a fact of life that I have been made aware of over and over and over and over again. And I'm trying desperately to stop. Just try to say, oh, isn't that interesting? So why are you telling me that now?
Right. You definitely need to stay in that center of the change grid where you're the observer of what's going on more. That's your what do I say? That's your I don't want to say it's your escape, but it's your little place of protection.
Yeah.
So before you get too far out grid or get too involved and all that, if you just remind yourself, no, I can move myself to the center of the change grid whenever I want. Now I'm inside of the green circle. I can find all this interesting. I can want better things for the people who are involved. I'm happy to give them guidance if they want that guidance, but this is not my battle to be fighting.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a very important lesson to learn. Otherwise, you end up moving further and further out grid, and that means you're absorbing more and more of that energy that technically isn't yours. You've just kind of got exposed to it, and now somehow or another, it's sucked you in
Right.
the other way around. Yep.
I have to say, I have been able to use it significantly.
Yeah.
Without knowing it, but from what we've talked in ChangeWorks, I had a situation come up that I was, and I am still rather proud of myself.
Good. Do share.
The woman told me, I mean, out of the blue, told me this story about her husband being abusive and a cheater, and he's horrible and blah, 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 blah. And I thought, well, I've met this man, and that is not he certainly didn't it's not the man I've seen, and that what I've talked to him. He's, I have a sense of his character, but I was able to not get up, and normally I'd be like, oh, you poor thing, da da da. But I literally said, well, now you need to get out of that mindset and try to look at this a different way. Just try to step back from your fear and from your ranting, and let's talk about this a little bit more cogently. Tell me, give me, let's get out of this fight or flight thing.
Yeah. Yep.
I was pretty proud of myself. I said, I got it from
Absolutely.
him, so thank
No,
And,
you.
because that's the
and
right thing to do. You know, what you actually did was some downgrade maneuvers and maybe some in-grid maneuvers for that individual. Anytime you guys want, we can revisit the technicalities of the different maneuvers, but they don't matter. Bottom line is you lowered their level of tension and maybe you backed off their level of drive enough for them to better calculate what can really be done, be a little bit
But
more.
the interesting thing was I was trying to lower my own self.
Oh, yeah, well, this is right.
And I mean, luckily it happened that, I mean, it's not like I knew what I was doing. I mean, I knew what I was doing for myself. I didn't realize I was helping her that way, but
Sure.
I mean, so it really was helpful for me for having this little bit of knowledge that I have.
Yep, and
And it worked.
you can actually protect yourself and be of better service to others at the same time.
Right, that was the surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's really all. You have no idea of how big of a problem it is when people that are in a helping profession, either, you know, obviously a lot of us on the call do it as a profession, but the things that we do are also things that regular people do knowingly or unknowingly when they encounter friends, family members, coworkers, situations, whatever it is. You know, this is something that is part of being a human, and there's a lot of instinctual stuff that's going to go along with it as well. So I think that the more people can become aware of the fact that they can practice their skills, they can do interventions, there are things they can do to protect themselves, and then now that they're okay, they can start to help other people more effectively. But we got a lot of human development professionals, and you guys might know a whole lot of people that will join anybody who's complaining in the complaint.
Oh,
Or
yeah. It's like
yeah,
a rally call. It's like a, oh, what's wrong?
absolutely, absolutely. Misery loves company.
Yes.
And so that's all what's going on. So that's actually what I wanted to talk about today. But anyone have any comments you want to throw in as you heard Anja describe her situation? Anyone?
yeah, T, it,
Yes.
it turns out that the woman may have been extremely exaggerating her home situation.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm sure of,
Yeah, it
for
was,
whatever reason.
Mhm.
It didn't resonate with me with what I personally knew.
well, we've talked to people. So, yeah, there's a dynamic in their relationship that she's trying to rally people to her side and she's
Of
not
course.
getting help. And of course, she's escalating the story as she goes along.
Yep. Well, now welcome to the world of being a professional human development person.
Good God.
Well,
We're not falling for
there's
it.
a phrase in our world that goes like this: the issue is rarely the issue. So the thing that people come to us, present to us as their problem, why they're reaching out, what's going on, very rarely does it end up being the truth, the whole truth, or the core of what's really going on. And we have to go on an expedition, try to figure out what's really going on, why are we talking about this, etc. So I'm glad we had this conversation because it sets the stage for what I want to talk about next. And it has to do with something I put up on Facebook a couple of days ago, just wanting to see if it would hold true. So I put this up, and all it says is, I just realized that January is spelled the same forwards and backwards.
Oh my God, I never knew
It
that.
is not.
I never
Okay,
noticed that.
so, all right, yeah. So everyone has their little comment, but my very first comment afterwards was the answer. I said, "Amazing how a stupid statement that's blatantly wrong still makes you stop and think. Shows you how easy it is for someone to hijack your brain."
It wasn't easy for me.
Okay, now, but that's it. So and then people commented that that's not the way it's spelled, and it's all very, very fun how it's all kind of put together. But this is what I wanted to do so that I could have this conversation today. When you encounter someone like this gal that Anja is describing, and she starts to communicate something that, as it turns out, is not really correct, but she was, because you said she was distorting it or generalizing it, but she did that. She hijacked your brain in that moment. And when that hijack occurs, the question is, are you likely to linger there? Or are you likely to go, wait a second, something else is really going on? So you can kind of recover from the hijacking, get your brain back, etc. So you guys with me on what I was trying to just assess here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So for you to just get hijacked and remain hijacked, what value is that going to be to anybody who's involved?
Right.
It's not. It's just
Well, good to her, right? Because
it's good to her, depending on what her goal was.
yeah.
And I think, Tom, you said maybe her goal was just to develop a sympathy circle.
Yeah.
She's just trying to create a whole bunch of people that'll, care for her and all that. All right. So I wanted to do this just to be able to demonstrate for someone how that in what less than a dozen words or so, we can grab hold of your brain and we can make it second guess what's going on. We can, awaken all kinds of thoughts and feelings and whatever that is shown here. Now, I thought Shags isn't on the call because I wanted to tease him a little bit. He just sent over a question mark and an exclamation mark or whatever. I'm like, nope, you got hijacked. So there you go. And look, Tom and Anja also know who Carol Douglas is. So there's Carol.
I'm not surprised.
Okay, anyway, so now the reason why I thought this was an interesting thing is because I believe that all of us are exposed multiple times a day by attempted hijackings.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, I don't know if that attempted hijacking has been very carefully constructed and mapped out, is it really some sinister plot? To hijack our brain and take it wherever they want it to go? Or is it just
Pandemic.
accidentally, incidentally?
Mm.
So let's talk a little bit about the situation with this gal Anja was saying. So first question I want you guys to answer is, what do you think this gal's motivations were in sharing this with Anja to begin with? Forget that Anja has done a deeper dive and learned more about it. Just think about at that first exposure to this piece of information, what do you think the individual's possible motivations might have included?
Shock and sympathy.
So you're trying to get sympathy. Yep. What else?
Turn people against her husband.
Turn people against her husband. Okay, good. What else could the motivation have been?
Offers
Support.
of help.
What's that? Sorry, Anja?
Offers of help, looking for people to help her.
Right. Looking for people who will actually step up and help. Brian, what were you just saying?
Support.
Looking for support from other people. Yep. So now I think there's a whole range of things that becomes what's really important at this point in time, because she might have actually been in true physical, harm's way. She could have been in real jeopardy and needed someone to help her get out of that situation or whatever the case may be. So the range of things that could be going on in terms of her motivation are very wide. Why is it important that before any of us start to take any sort of action that we try to gain deeper levels of understanding about what's happening with this person?
Because she might actually need help.
She might actually need help. She might actually be in harm's way. And so we want to, check into that just to kind of know. And as you did that, no doubt, that's when you started going like, the picture that she's painting and the picture that I've seen, and now things that she's saying, she's kind of softening a little bit. All right. Why is that important that we've taken the time to do that? Because
Help her. Get her out of harm's way if she's in it, or it could
exactly.
be an explosive situation.
Right, because otherwise, if we just absorb her energy and accept her truth as it's presented to us on the surface, how is that going to impact us? Now, put her out of the way. The conversation is over. She's moved on. Interestingly enough, the conversation remains happening in your head. And as a result, what might you do with the story that she has shared with you earlier?
Share it with others.
Share it with others. Why is that a good, bad, right, wrong, positive, negative possibility?
Because it's just hearsay.
It's just hearsay. And so when we spread it, what are we really doing?
What she wants. If she's not in harm's way, and if she's trying to rally the troops against him for whatever reason, now you've joined sides.
Now you've joined sides. You're spreading her story. We'll give her the benefit right now. Her story, and now other people are hearing the story from you. What are they likely to do with the information?
Repeat it.
Repeat it. Repeat
There
it.
you
Rinse,
go.
repeat.
Yeah.
Lather, rinse, repeat.
So how many
And
brain?
we know what happens when you keep repeating it.
Well, go ahead, share what happens. What are some of the things that happen as stories are repeated?
Well, they're your story now. They're not hers. So you put
Oh.
emphasis on different things.
Right.
Story
Or
change.
not.
Right. You're going to take what you heard from her. It's going to be processed through your personal filters based on your life experiences, et cetera, whatever. And now that story, as it gets shared, is going to be altered. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's being made worse or better or whatever. It's just going to be different than the story you initially heard. And then as another person hears it, what are they likely to do? Now that they've heard your story, what are they likely to do?
Add on.
Chinese whispers, I think you call that, right?
Oh, what do we call that? Tell us, Dragon.
Do you know that game, Chinese whispers? I think it's called Chinese, when you have a circle of people and the first person says a sentence to someone.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone
Yeah.
passes it on to you, and when it comes to the last one, it's a completely different story.
Completely different. Yeah, we call that like telegraph or telephone or something like that. I forget.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's exactly right. Exactly right. Everything gets ever so slightly modified. And by the way, that means important pieces of information could be deleted, but totally new pieces of information can be added. So the whole thing can be greatly embellished. And by the time it goes through 3 or 4 generations, as Dragon just pointed out, you get to the end of the circle or around the circle, and the story is absolutely completely different than the one you started with.
I think that's why it's important to do this evaluation. Like in medical school, we were taught motivational interviewing. And from that, I applied, neurobiology to it. And I call it context sharing and context shaping.
Oh, do tell us more about that.
So, we always have content, we're bombarded with it on a daily basis from, news and others kinds of reports, whether it's family member. But what we don't know fully is the context of it. And so when we share in someone's narrative without filtering it through our own understanding and through our own way of participating in the information, then now we're just taking on someone's narrative. And to, as Anja story pointed out, it may not be true necessarily, or you might not have the full truth. You might have a truth. And so that kind of sharing is preceded by your own shaping of things. And that's where you learn to ask certain questions that don't, and I'm far away from being an expert at it, but you learn to ask questions that allow you to actively listen, and at the same time, you don't fend off the person who, might be in some kind of pickle of some sort. And then that way you can position, because, for me, what's important is, when we talk about joy, satisfaction, meaning, purpose, all these kinds of things, these are fluid experiences. And we're meant to actually align this kind of intrinsic desires and understandings with it. And that that can happen differently from moment to moment. I think that's where the struggle becomes with this being empathic and then actually expressing it and allowing to learn from it, so that that continuum can continue to grow in that. Because otherwise, then it's just a manufactured experience and it's a one-off thing. And I don't think that's what empath is.
No. And again, this call is on the Oracle, the self. So we have to get this back to, why is this important for you as an individual to understand? Why is it important that you understand that anything that's happening outside of the green circle, between the red and the green, or the green and the red circle, and certainly anything out in the outgrid circles, you are going to hear messaging or being exposed to content and context that is not necessarily yours, but it's going to impact you. So are you just going to notice it and then get back to you being the best you can be? Or are you going to be hijacked like my silly little Facebook post, and suddenly you're going to linger out here in these areas where life is lived, and the worst case scenarios, chaos and confusion and all that can do. So I guess my question is, how comfortable you guys knowing that all day long people are trying to hijack your attention and move you out of your centered spot?
Yeah.
It's
Definitely aware of it every
very
day.
well.
Yeah. And by the way, they might not be trying to do it intentionally, because again, they're not trained. They may not even have the awareness. They could just be out there talking and being the way they always are. They don't necessarily want to, mess with your world, but they're paying attention to where their attention is. They're talking about whatever it is they need to be talking about. So the burden is not on them. The burden is on you. How do you go about recognizing when this hijack, and by the way, it doesn't have to be fully hijacked. It could also just be a distraction that occurs. Something catches your attention. And by the way, your brain allowed it to capture your attention because it's something that isn't understood yet. And so there could be something there for you to learn. There could be a warning. There could be something. That's why you're willing to at least go out there and try to better understand what's really going on. But very quickly, you have to decide whether or not dwelling there is of any value to you, or is dwelling there going to be useful in some way to someone else that you care about for whatever reasons. So,
Well, one other reason, T, sometimes Tom and I have come across this more often than I care to say, but there are people that I care about telling me something and trying to hijack my brain, and they truly believe it. They are truly invested, and I don't think they're trying to hijack my brain. I think they're trying to save me. But and it's very disconcerting. It's, you like these people and you look at them and you think you're mad. You're insane.
just insane, right? Yeah, because again,
Yeah,
it's very situationally specific, but still, you're absolutely right. They have motivations in sharing information with you. Whether that motivation is something that is very much in the surface of their awareness, or whether it is something that is deep, deep under their conscious awareness, who knows? All I know is, for some reason, they have felt compelled to share something with you. Why have they shared that with you? Because they're looking for something that will enhance their sense of control. It's always going to get back to control, right? We go back to the most fundamental principles in tension management. So now that control could mean that there's more support available for them now. They get some pity in the moment, so they're being comforted or soothed in the moment. Maybe they gain control because they really are in an abusive situation, and by bringing more and more attention to it, they feel like their safety is going to go up, because now the perpetrator is less likely to behave in such ways. I don't know what their motivation is in specific,
Right.
but I know their general motivation is to somehow or another gain control in whatever's going on.
Interesting.
Thoughts about that?
So T, I wonder where, we talk about tension management in terms of the ability and challenge, but I wonder those other factors in terms of size and importance, like how that factors in. Because Anja, I think, brought up a significant point that I have to deal with daily, and I'm what's considered a highly sensitive person. I think some of that is genetic due to being a preemie baby, and so sound, smell, all those kinds of things
were developed more thoroughly sooner.
Yeah, so it's kind of quite sensitive to me, smells, and so I can pick up on an environment quite easily. Like I've been wrestling with even returning back to the States because I'm so, you know, when I see these young kids here in these poor countries throughout Central America and South America, I'm just like, man, this is, you know, it feels good here. They're happy. They don't have all the material trappings of America, but they're happy,
Yeah, yeah,
you know. And I said, and I try to buffer between the other physicians who come here with their ideologies about how to go about it. But then it reminds me of, you know, being a young lad in Africa where people say, yeah, we're going to get rid of the poverty on the continent. And they come and study and do research and then leave. And so I have a particular connection to it. And I'm trying to be on both sides to kind of be a buffer, but it's terribly difficult. And I think that's why my conversation with these other colleagues is so short, because I'm trying to get them to see that it can't be your way, it has to be their way.
yeah.
And that's not protecting myself because now I'm drawn into a
No.
narrative,
Right. Yeah,
right?
you're creating quite the battleground.
Exactly.
And you get, so again, you have to go back then and go like, all right, so let's go back to this idea about these people have a motivation for what they're sharing with you. Now, what is your motivation in listening to them? So sometimes, and I think this is what makes this so important for the oracle of the self, you have to become aware enough of yourself to be able to decide the degree to which you are willing to expose yourself to other people's stories, et cetera, whatever it happens to be. So if you're someone who doesn't have any boundaries, or you're someone who doesn't have the skills to even notice when this is happening so that you can do something to defend yourself, protect yourself, minimize it, whatever the case may be, you can very easily find yourself sucked into whatever that drama happens to be. And now you've lost yourself. And so I think from an oracle of the self perspective, this is vitally, vitally important for you to be aware of. What is their motivation? How does that serve you? If it doesn't serve you, then how can you either minimize its impact or get away from it altogether? And so there's a lot there to be thinking about. But are you guys with me on what I'm describing as far as the dynamic that you need to be aware of from an oracle of the self perspective?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if
Absolutely.
you are, oh, go ahead, Dragon. Go ahead.
No, I just said definitely. I mean, and like you say, I also helped a lot of people in my practice or at work, wherever, and people can find me. But I have to admit, the last years I am doing my best to well, maybe a bad word, protect myself, but I don't want to put myself always out there and sucked into things where, you know, maybe I shouldn't, or I need to help someone else. Because if you let yourself out there, you know, they say you give a finger, they take your whole body. You know, that's sort of
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So I
ours
try
is
to
you give them
protect
an inch, they'll take a mile.
yeah. What I would like to say is, I mean, I'm thinking of two things all the time while we're discussing this. You know, how you deal with, how people deal with, how we talk to each other, etc. And I keep thinking of two things. The one thing is the bias, because we are all biased in many different
Yes.
ways. That's a huge influence. And the other one is the very often correlation, which is mistaken for causality.
Yes. Yep.
And those two things put together really mess up a lot of the things that we talk about with each other.
Right. In fact, I think it was with the circle. We had a conversation once about, it was three words. We had correlation, causation, and coincidence. I
There
think
you go.
was the third C. And if people don't get clear about the difference between correlation, causation, and coincidence, then they can draw a whole lot of conclusions that are way off the mark. Way off the mark. And by the way, again, you know, we seem to be talking about people that could be trying to derail us or whatever. Keep in mind that everything that you read, everything you see in the news or whatever, all that stuff is also doing the exact same dynamic. They're trying to gain control. And one of the ways they think they can gain control is by somehow or another communicating a message to you. And that message they're hoping is going to hijack your brain so that you will become more aligned with whatever their agenda, their point, their whatever happens to be. So don't just think it's purely interpersonal. I think it has to do with how communication occurs in all modalities, everywhere, anywhere and everywhere around you. Yeah. So now, if you guys can really understand how important it is for you to be able to recognize when others are trying to pull you outside of the green circle, then I think you're ready for a rather, how about this, an even more challenging aspect to this. So
Uh-huh.
I want you guys to think about, how often are you the one that's communicating messages that are out there? What is your motivation in communicating it? And so, you know, as you're, yeah. So no matter who you're talking to, no matter what you're doing, I think it's important for you to say, what is the message I'm trying to communicate? And what is my motivation in sharing that? So if I've heard something from somebody else and now I'm thinking about sharing it with somebody else, why am I perpetuating the story? Why am I sharing it with other people? Is it because I think the other people will benefit somehow from hearing the story? Or is it that I am trying to build some sort of support network for whoever? What is your motivation in sharing that information with another person? So give me some ideas. Why might you share information with other people?
I think we
Yeah,
love to
teach them.
share information with other people, and I think it's genetic.
It is.
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
do you know when someone tells there's a group of people, I've been noticing and watching out for that lately, somebody starts to talk about something and a lot of other people actually don't go into that story, but every other person starts, oh, and I did this, and I did this, and I did this.
Yep. Yeah,
Love to share. It's unconscious. It just goes out there. So if you're not aware of it, there's nothing you're going to do about it.
that's right. And so, and I think Audrey, you were aligned with that as well. It's just, it's nature. It's
Yeah, well, people love to teach. I was reading a book about how children love to teach. That they were in a group and they were just surprised at how they would teach a child something, and young children, how anxious they were to turn around and teach someone else that. And that it's a compulsion that we have as human beings to share information and teach people. And I've seen that throughout my life, that
Yes.
there are certain people who just will turn around and teach what they know. And I love to share information. Like we have a friend who wrote a teaching module, and I told him about this because I thought, boy, it would be so interesting. It's for children. It's for disadvantaged children. And I thought, oh my God, because all the things that they were saying in this book said that children have a different perspective. And just what you're all saying right now, different biases, they communicate with other children and they see things differently
Yep.
than we do. And we think we think we're telling them something straight up, but they have a whole nother way of looking at it, and their communication to other children is so much more valid, so much more impactful.
Yes. Yes.
So I shared that with him because I thought, God, it'd be so great to have a module where the children teach each other.
Yep.
That's a natural way that we learn, and that's why children learn a lot faster than adults, because we put these stopholds on that kind of dynamic terms of, because
Well,
when
and
you're
it also
sharing
goes
and
back
you share
to,
fairly, you get like other perspectives. But that goes back to what we're talking about here. How do we take in these perspectives? When we learn from them, how does it guide or even further draw us
But
out of it?
Brian, I don't understand what you meant by that's why children learn more quickly or
Yeah,
more.
children learn faster. They learn a lot faster.
their brains are
They're,
far more elastic.
yeah, so
Also,
far more.
and probably one of the best ways to demonstrate that is that the younger a child is, the faster they can absorb multiple languages. In fact, Dragon, there you go. How old were you when you learned to speak English?
6, 7,
Right. And even Dutch is not your first language. Is that right?
correct.
So you speak, right. So you speak at
You're
least.
doing a pretty good job with that English there, Dragon.
Oh, yeah. No. Dragon, I know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so when you travel around Europe and you you're on a bus or a train and school just let out and suddenly the thing is packed with kids, it's amazing how many languages you will hear them speak, moving fluidly from one to the next to the next. Well, as you get older, your brain gets older, it does become more and more difficult to learn to speak another language. And yeah, anyway, so I think
Partly
it has
because
to do
of the
with
way
the
we try.
what's that now?
It's partly because of the way we try to learn. As adults, we try to learn word for, this word is
Right.
this word and that word is that word, instead of trying to have conversation and use. Children learn in conversation. I mean, they can
Yes.
do two languages simultaneously and they can keep them separate as well, which is pretty damned interesting. But we,
Yeah,
as
but
adults, like there's a woman that we know who has been trying to learn Spanish, and we know a little bit, and so we'll come in and we'll say, hey, she's a monitor at Palm Ridge, and we'll come in and we'll say, we'll ask her something in Spanish, and she'll look at us completely blank. She's been doing it for a couple of years, and she just can't. It's so obvious that she's trying to do one word at a time instead of a phrasing.
exactly. Well, and I think, this goes back to what Brian was saying, is that children learn anything and everything very quickly. I don't know what the technical terms are for it, but for whatever reason, their brains are able to absorb information more quickly. Maybe there's just more room in their heads. I don't know. But one way or another, this is true. So they do tend to share things with one another. But I think, as Dragon was saying initially, it has to do with the fact that human beings are by nature social creatures.
Mhm.
And so we are going to share things with one another, things we find interesting, things we find curious. But because you guys also understand tension management, we are more likely to share. Now, I'll do it as a question. Are you more likely to share stories that are upgrid, outgrid, downgrid, or ingrid in nature?
Up and out.
Up and out, because upgrade could be threatening. And so maybe if someone is feeling threatened about ABC, we're going to share what we learned about that same situation. So for example, before the call got officially started, I'm talking about how our cactuses are collapsing. Well, a lot of people are really worried about this because it can be very dangerous, and it's very heartbreaking to see, the symbol of Arizona suddenly laying on the ground. So we want to do downgrade maneuvers. Can we help people understand why? So we might be talking about that because it's something that's upgrade for a lot of people right now. As David pointed out, it could also be an outgrid kind of thing. If we've got something we're driven by and we're talking to other people who can help in that drive or join us in that drive, that's the kind of thing we're going to share. Very far in-grid and very far down-grid stories, those don't get shared as easily, although they do get shared. So how many of you want to go to a party and have conversations with everybody who's down in apathy?
Mhm.
No.
Been there.
Boring.
Boring. I also don't want to go to a party though and have everybody who's way up grid, right?
Irritating.
It's too much. It's just
Yeah.
too much. We need to have some moderation or whatever, but we do find upgrid stories more interesting and outgrid stories more interesting than downgrid and ingrid. I also think it's because of how upgrid in particular is triggering our survival mechanisms. Why is it that whenever we're driving and we encounter a traffic accident, we want to slow down, even though there's no reason for us to slow down? Why do we slow down? Why do we want to look? Why do we want to see what's happening? Because
Sure, I avoid any other danger.
right, maybe we can learn something from what has befallen this poor individual that will change things.
I'm more curious as to
Except that you usually it causes more problems.
Well, it does, because now you're slowing down traffic on your side. And, yeah, and that's moving a lot of people upgrade on a lot of other reasons. So,
yeah, we slow down for safety, but what's that called? Crane our necks?
yeah, you crane your neck. You got to like gooseneck it.
I'm hoping to see something. I want to see something.
Oh my God, not me.
It's just curious. People are curious. Oh, I want to see what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we're curious though because of a survival instinct. That's why, going back to Dragon's point about a lot of the sharing is because it's our instinct, it's our nature to kind of look at those things. We have to see what happened to somebody. So maybe, just maybe, we can learn how to avoid that happening for ourselves, or something like that. I'll give you an interesting little story. Over the weekend, I saw a little meme, probably on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, but it was talking about drivers in Germany. If there is a traffic jam, they all do something. Now, it might be their laws, but nevertheless, they all do something that you would never see happen in the United States. Anyone see that or know what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
No.
whenever there's a traffic jam, and Dragon, you can tell us if this is something that's all across Europe as well, but drivers move to the outside of the lanes so they can create a lane going down the middle that is free and clear all the way down in case an emergency vehicle needs to get to whatever's
No,
going on.
That's Germany.
That's
I've seen
just, yeah.
I've seen it also, went to the CeBIT a long time ago, this huge fair for technical stuff, and there are two roads going into one. I mean, here or in every other country, they would be, screaming at each other, killing each other. They were going kilometers and kilometers, one by one, letting each other go. So this is also a nice example. That's Germans. They're very well known for such stuff.
Yeah.
No, here, definitely not.
Right. Yeah, well, that's true, because I've been trapped in a lot of traffic jams in the Netherlands. So, yeah, there you are. Okay, so, I guess the point that I want to get back to is that I think that part of the goal of understanding the oracle of the self and developing some more mastery along those things is that you have to recognize the degree to which you are contributing to the problem. So anytime you are about to share any kind of information, whether tell a story, whatever it is, wouldn't it be interesting for you to just go, before I say anything, I want to know, what is my motivation for sharing this? Do I think it's going to enhance that person's life? Is it going to, in some way or another, help them? Is it purely for entertainment value, because it's an amusing story or an unbelievable story that you think it would be, interesting and good conversation and all that? All those are perfectly legitimate reasons to be sharing. The question is, do you know what your motivation is before you begin the share?
We never think about it.
That's what we're saying, is that's why the oracle of the self. There's another part that goes along with the oracle of the self, and that's positively living. So positively living is something we were starting to do, and then COVID happened. But it was basically a once a week kind of a gathering that you could invite people over. Maybe it's an hour and a half long, and you would just say, during this next hour and a half, we're not going to say or share anything that is even remotely negative, because negativity for a lot of people has become their default. It's become a habit. And it's interesting that people have run out. If you take negativity away from them, people don't have anything to talk about. And so you want to go, no, that's just because bad habits have been formed. So instead, let's spend some time positively living, that everything we're going to talk about is somehow or another inherently positive or has a very positive intention in the way it's being shared. We're using positive languaging, positive facial expressions, all that kind of stuff, so that we can become not so much more and more aware of the value of positivity, but more and more aware of how being negative is our default. So some of that negativity is because of survival instincts being triggered. And by the way, if one of the first things I was showing you to guys when you arrived was I was showing you radial trends on the change grid. So if we're going to be looking at positivity and negativity, just know that it's not like that's an either or. There are countless stops along that continuum. And we can go from positivity to toxic positivity to negativity, toxic negativity. And that's where we really are on the watch out for. No one needs to be in a toxic negativity situation. So yeah, you got to do what you can do.
I do think though about if I think about my motivations, especially if it's something personal, I think about whether I need to say anything or not about that.
Yeah, right.
I don't think I do it all the time, but I think if it's something really close to my heart, I think about my
I
motivation.
think it happens so fast, we're not conscious of our motivation.
And
Ah,
that's the whole point of Oracle, the self-training or tension management training or empathy training and all that. It's like, how can we become a little more conscious of what it is that we're saying and doing so that we can decide, do I want to perpetuate something that really isn't likely to help anybody in any way? Or I'm just I'm hijacking their brain and whatever. Or do you want to go like, no, I don't need to share that, but I do want to share this and
Mhm.
whatever that happens to be, you know. So
I think that has to be intentional.
it
It's kind of
has to
like
become more
I see it like working out, right? You have your core, like martial arts. We move through every movement with breath, and you do that for a reason, so that even if you're thrown off, you can reset quite quickly. And so I think that has to be kind of an intentional thing because, like Anja, I can do that for the most part, quite often I'm put in that situation where I'm just not going to say just anything to a patient, but there's lots of times where I'm like, I don't give a shit. I just come right out and say it. Like I just
right.
don't.
That,
So
that's why
that's
you have a mute button.
That's right. That's right. We just
uh,
have to use the mute button that's built into us as humans.
exactly.
And by the
That's
way,
good off.
there are also cultural distinctions that can be pulled into play here. Certain cultures are far more likely to share personal stories and that than other cultures are.
Hmm.
There are some cultures where sharing anything that goes on inside of your household would be considered grossly inappropriate to share with
Hmm.
anybody outside. And so it also has to, I think you're going to find it far more prevalent in a culture like the United States, where everybody seems to have no filters and are more than happy to talk to anybody and everybody about anything and everything. So that's our culture. That's our culture. And so it's got its own share of problems. One of them is, yeah, what we're sharing.
That's often overwhelming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. So, all right,
Yeah.
well, so Dragon, do you notice whether or not Americans tend to overshare?
I don't know. I haven't had that experience, but then again, I haven't really had the pleasure of so much encounters with people from America.
There
Except
you
you.
go.
Let me tell you about myself, Dragon.
Exactly. It's overwhelming for me, I can tell you that. And I've been around for a while.
Yeah, yeah. Right, but so
You know,
point is,
one thing about sharing though is when you sit in a situation and you're not saying anything,
yep.
positive or negative, you're also being judged by everybody else around the table.
Well, exactly.
That's a
And
good point. I think that what is important also is to know with whom you should share stuff.
right, right.
Mm,
I mean,
mm.
because obviously it's great for all of us to have relationships with people where we know we can go and share anything with them. And we're not going to be harshly judged. We're going to be heard and supported. It's great for everyone to have one of those kinds of things. It's more the indiscriminate sharing of information that has no real value to the person you're sharing it with and may ultimately be damaging to them, even if all you're doing is harshing their mellow, you're just interrupting their bliss. Why are you doing that? And so I think it's really important for us to become more aware of how the messages we are receiving are impacting us. And at the same time, once we have that awareness, how is it that what we're choosing to share is going to affect other people as well?
So T, I wonder how does the technology, the social media aspect plays into this sharing aspect? Because it seems the younger generations have certainly a tighter grip on the technology aspect. And they say they have a gazillion
Yeah,
friends
right.
on Facebook, right? And they're
Yeah.
putting everything out there. That kind of like I see that, and again I talk to the kids like, okay, yeah, so why are you sharing that,
Right. And you do
about
have
your
to
house?
Yeah, exactly. And you do have to wonder, again, if you're out in the world of social media, is it the truth that they're actually sharing? Is it, like, for
Right.
example, I would say that there are probably a lot of support group sorts of things that used to require we all get together physically in the same space to do the work of the support group. And a lot of those have migrated online. If they're well facilitated, they're probably great. But you're talking about social media that doesn't have any sort of real scrutiny being brought to it, and then is the story correct, is it sensationalized, what's really going on? So yeah, I do think this whole yeah, yep. All right, there was one more thing I wanted to say before we were done for
Oh
today.
my God,
How time flies when you're having fun.
man.
Yeah. Well,
Man.
again, you guys are welcome to join us for the Tuesday and Thursday calls. We are talking about empath. Obviously, the whole point of this series that I'm sharing with everyone. Oh, by the way, we had some people join us after. So let me chat this article over to everyone again. This is the first article in the series on empath that I have been sharing with people. So you might want to read over that if you're going to join us for the calls. And there'll be another section of the article people will get on this week's calls. Anyway, I think it really is important for those of us that are in helping professions to realize that our abilities as an empath are very much brought into play as we're doing whatever kind of service we happen to be offering. And we need to be able to understand how to better use those talents and develop those talents even further, while at the same time protecting ourselves from the negative aspects of being a less than perfectly trained empath. So what are the dangers that lack of awareness, lack of training brings onto all of us? So I think it'll all fit for you guys. But as far as Oracle of the Self is concerned, I just want to make sure that you guys are aware that it's all about messages, and it's all about not only the messages you're receiving and the messages that you are sharing, but what about the messages that are happening inside of your own head? At the beginning, we talked about how whenever you're having these thoughts, feelings, beliefs, whatever, maybe it's good to stop and say, are those even mine? Or is that just something that I absorbed from somebody else at some other time in history, and I've kind of, pardon me, metamorphed into it? And now it's mine, although it really isn't mine. So I think that you can ultimately apply this to the conversations you're having with yourself about yourself, and see how good of a job you're doing there as well. Okay, final thoughts, comments, questions?
Very good.
Yeah, excellent.
Good
Yeah,
stuff, good
very
stuff.
nice. Good
Good
stuff.
Sure, I
stuff.
thought I was on the beginning and it's the end of the call.
Oh, Tom, yeah, no, we're
I need an empath.
yeah, well,
You need a what?
I thought I was early.
all right, I'm going to share with you guys one last fun thing. So I saw a little short video, and it was about, this guy said that if you chop off the bottom of like your romaine lettuce and put it into a cup with a little bit of water, within a few days, lettuce will grow. And at first I'm thinking like, oh, this is another one of these stupid things. Nope, Linda and I did it. This is 3 days ago. We put
Oh,
our
my.
little end of the romaine into a little cup with some water. And this is the new growth we have as of today.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It is. And they said that sooner or later it'll produce new roots. Once you see roots, you can move it into dirt. And then it can really
my
grow.
God.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of time and work to replace a head of lettuce, but it's
Did you make a Caesar salad with a T?
well, right. And we have enough new growth now that we can make the world's smallest Caesar salad. Well, there you go. But who knows? It actually did work. We're rather proud of our little lettuce guy there. Okay, that's it for now. So thanks everybody. Take care. We'll talk
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.